"Can you lend me $2? I need it for the milk," asked the humble mother. The CEO did something no one expected. "Can you lend me $2? I need it for the milk," asked the humble mother. The CEO did something no one expected. Emma stood frozen before the towering glass facade of Ashford Enterprises, her worn sneakers a stark contrast against the polished marble steps. The crumpled paper in her trembling hands bore an address she'd memorized days ago, though she'd delayed coming until desperation finally outweighed her pride. The morning sun reflected off the building's surface, nearly blinding her as she squinted upward at the 40 stories of steel and glass. Her threadbare jacket, picked up from a thrift store 2 seasons ago, did little to ward off the morning chill. She tugged at its frayed sleeves, trying to cover the holes that had formed at the cuffs. Around her, well-dressed professionals streamed past with purposeful strides, their designer shoes clicking against the pavement, their briefcases swinging in rhythm. "You can do this," Emma whispered to herself, thinking of her siblings at home. Little Sarah had cried this morning when they ran out of milk, and Tommy had tried to pretend he wasn't hungry. The memory strengthened her resolve, even as her reflection in the glass doors made her wince, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, her face pale with exhaustion, her clothes marking her as clearly as any sign could that she didn't belong here. The security guard inside watched her with mild curiosity as she hovered by the entrance. Emma drew in a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and pushed through the revolving door. The lobby's cool air washed over her, carrying the subtle scent of leather and coffee. Her footsteps echoed in the vast space as she made her way across the marble floor, each step feeling like it drew more attention to her presence. Crystal chandeliers hung from the vaulted ceiling, their light dancing across chrome and glass surfaces. A massive reception desk curved along one wall, staffed by 3 impeccably dressed women. Emma's throat tightened as she approached, her hands dampening the paper she still clutched. "Can I help you?" The receptionist's voice was professional but cool, her perfectly manicured fingers poised over her keyboard. Emma swallowed hard. I was wondering—" Her voice came out barely above a whisper, and she forced herself to speak louder. "I need to borrow $2 for milk, for my siblings." The words tumbled out, each one more difficult than the last. The receptionist's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly. Behind her, the elevator doors opened, and a tall man in an expensive suit stepped out, his attention caught by the unusual exchange. "I'm sorry," the receptionist said, her tone gentler now but still firm. "We don't—" "Is everything all right here?" The man's deep voice cut through the awkward moment. Emma turned to find William Ashford himself standing there, his presence commanding yet somehow not unkind. She recognized him from the photos in the business magazines she'd studied at the library, trying to gather the courage to come here. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his suit obviously tailored to his broad shoulders, but it was his eyes that held Emma's attention. Sharp and intelligent, yes, but with an unexpected warmth that made her breath catch. "Sir," the receptionist began, "this young woman was just—" "I heard," William said, his gaze never leaving Emma's face. He studied her for a long moment, taking in her worn clothes and the determined set of her jaw despite her obvious discomfort. Then he gestured toward the elevator. "Would you join me in my office for a moment?" Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. This wasn't how she'd imagined this would go. She'd only wanted to borrow $2 to be able to bring milk home to her siblings, but something in William Ashford's expression made her nod, even as her hands twisted nervously in front of her. "This way," he said, holding out his arm to guide her towards the elevator, while the receptionist watched with poorly concealed surprise. The elevator ascended silently, its polished walls reflecting Emma's uncertain expression as she stood beside William Ashford. Her worn sneakers sank into the thick carpet, making her all too aware of how out of place she was. The CEO maintained a respectful distance, his presence both intimidating and oddly reassuring. When the doors opened to the 40th floor, Emma's breath caught. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city below, making her feel as though she were floating above the world she knew. The marble floors gleamed beneath her feet, and artwork that probably cost more than she made in a year adorned the walls. "This way," William said, guiding her past a spacious reception area where a sophisticated older woman sat at an elegant desk. The woman's eyes widened slightly at Emma's appearance, but she quickly schooled her expression into professional neutrality. William's office was larger than Emma's entire apartment. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating a massive desk crafted from dark wood and leather chairs that looked butter-soft. A sitting area with plush sofas occupied one corner, while shelves lined with books and awards covered another wall. "Please, have a seat." William gestured to one of the chairs facing his desk. Emma perched on the edge, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The leather was as soft as it looked, but she couldn't relax into it. William didn't sit behind his desk as she expected. Instead, he chose the chair next to her, turning it slightly to face her. The gesture somehow made him seem more approachable, despite his obvious wealth and power. "I'm William Ashford," he said, his voice gentle. "Would you tell me your name?" "Emma," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She cleared her throat and tried again. "Emma Sullivan." "Emma," he repeated, as if testing the name. "I couldn't help but overhear your request downstairs. Would you tell me more about why you need that milk?" Something in his tone, genuine interest rather than judgment, made Emma's carefully constructed walls begin to crumble. "It's for my siblings," she said, her fingers twisting together. "There are 4 of them. Sarah's only 6, and she cries when she doesn't have milk for her cereal. Tommy's 8, Jack's 12, and Marie's 14. I'm trying my best to take care of them, but it's not easy," William finished for her when her voice trailed off. "Where are your parents?" Emma's throat tightened. "Dad left 3 years ago. We lost Mom last year to cancer. She tried to hold on, but..." She blinked rapidly, fighting back tears. William leaned forward slightly, his expression thoughtful. "So you're taking care of 4 children on your own. How old are you, Emma?" 22, she answered, lifting her chin slightly. "I work 2 jobs, waitressing and cleaning offices at night. But this month's been hard. The heating bill was higher than expected, and Tommy needed new shoes for school, and I just..." She stopped, embarrassed by how much she was revealing. William was quiet for a moment, studying her with those intense eyes. "You came to a corporate office building to borrow $2 for milk," he said finally. "That must have taken considerable courage." Emma's cheeks flushed. "I've been walking past this building for weeks," she admitted. "I kept telling myself that surely someone here could spare $2, that I'd pay it back as soon as I could. I couldn't bear to see Sarah cry again this morning." "Emma," William said, his voice firm but kind, "I'm not going to give you $2. Before her heart could sink completely, he continued. "Instead, I'd like to offer you a job." She stared at him, certain she'd misheard. "A job?" "Yes. We have an opening for a receptionist position. It pays well above minimum wage, includes full benefits, and has regular hours that would allow you to be home with your siblings in the evenings." Emma's mind spun. "But I've never..." "You've been managing a household of 5 on 2 minimum wage jobs," William said. "That shows responsibility, determination, and organizational skills. Everything else can be learned." Emma's hands trembled in her lap as she processed his words. A real job, with benefits, regular hours, enough money to buy milk without counting pennies. It seemed too good to be true. "Would you be interested?" William asked gently. Tears pricked at Emma's eyes as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I would." Emma's heart pounded as she pushed through the revolving doors of Ashford Enterprises on Monday morning. The lobby seemed even more intimidating than before, with its soaring marble columns and gleaming floors that reflected the morning sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She tugged self-consciously at the sleeve of her only proper blouse, carefully ironed the night before, after the kids had gone to bed. Clusters of well-dressed professionals moved purposefully across the lobby, their shoes clicking against the polished floor. Emma felt painfully aware of her own worn shoes, purchased from a thrift store 2 years ago. She'd polished them repeatedly last night, but they still looked shabby compared to the expensive footwear around her. "Emma, right on time." She turned to see Patricia, the HR manager she'd met during her paperwork signing last week, striding toward her. The older woman's silver hair was perfectly coiffed, her navy suit crisp and professional. "Good morning," Emma managed, her voice smaller than she intended. "Let's get you settled at your desk," Patricia said, leading her to the circular reception desk that dominated the center of the lobby. "This will be your home base." The desk was a masterpiece of modern design, all curved lines and gleaming surfaces. Multiple computer screens sat atop it, their black screens looking dauntingly complex. "This is Sandra." Patricia gestured to a woman about Emma's age, who gave a friendly wave. "She'll be training you this week." Sandra's warm smile helped ease some of Emma's tension. "Don't worry," Sandra said. "It looks more complicated than it is." Over the next hour, Sandra walked Emma through the basics: how to log into the computer system, transfer calls, check visitors in, and handle deliveries. Emma's head spun with information as she tried to memorize every detail. "The most important thing," Sandra explained, "is to always sound confident on the phone, even when you're not sure about something. You can put them on hold and ask me if you need to." Emma nodded, jotting notes in the small notebook she'd brought. Her hand trembled slightly as she wrote, and she pressed harder to steady it. The morning rushed by in a blur of practice calls and system navigation. Emma fumbled with the phone system multiple times, accidentally disconnecting one call and sending another to the wrong department. Each mistake made her chest tighter, but Sandra remained patient. "Everyone messes up at first," Sandra assured her during their lunch break. "You should have seen me my first week. I accidentally transferred the CEO of our biggest client to the maintenance department." Emma managed a small laugh, though her sandwich tasted like cardboard in her dry mouth. She'd packed it carefully the night before, simple peanut butter and jelly, leaving the last of the turkey for the kids' lunches. The afternoon brought real calls and actual visitors. Emma's voice shook as she answered her first live call, but she managed to follow Sandra's script. When she successfully transferred the call to the correct department, Sandra gave her a thumbs up. A delivery arrived, boxes of office supplies that needed to be logged and distributed. Emma's hands were steady as she checked the manifest and entered the information into the system, just as Sandra had shown her. It was familiar work, similar to the inventory she kept of their household supplies at home. As 5 o'clock approached, Emma's shoulders ached from tension, but she felt a small flutter of pride. She hadn't made any major mistakes in the afternoon, and she'd even received a smile from Mr. Ashford when he passed through the lobby. "You did well today," Sandra said as they logged out of their computers. "Really well, actually. Most people are totally overwhelmed their first day." Emma managed a small smile, though her stomach churned with anxiety about tomorrow. Could she really do this? Could she really belong in this world of polished marble and expensive suits? She gathered her purse, checking her phone to make sure Marie hadn't called about the younger kids. Everything seemed okay at home, but a new worry nagged at her. Would she be able to keep up with this job while managing her family's needs? Emma sat alone in the break room, carefully unwrapping her simple lunch, another peanut butter sandwich. The large room was mostly empty, except for two women sitting at a table near the window, their designer bags casually placed on spare chairs. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, sunlight streamed in, making the chrome appliances gleam. She tried to make herself smaller, not wanting to draw attention. After 3 days at Ashford Enterprises, she still felt like an outsider. The break room itself was nicer than any restaurant she'd ever been to, with its marble countertops and fancy coffee machines that made drinks she couldn't pronounce. "Did you read that article about William in Business Weekly?" one of the women asked, her voice carrying across the quiet room. Emma recognized her as Jennifer from marketing, always impeccably dressed in designer clothes. "The one about his rags to riches story? I couldn't believe it," replied the other woman, Sarah from accounting. "I mean, looking at him now, you'd never guess he grew up in that kind of poverty." Emma's hand froze midway to her mouth, her sandwich forgotten. She kept her eyes down but strained to hear more. "Apparently, his mother worked 3 jobs just to keep them fed," Jennifer continued, stirring her salad. "They lived in some rundown apartment in the East Side. Can you imagine? William Ashford, sleeping on a mattress on the floor?" Sarah shook her head, pearl earrings catching the light. "I heard his father died when he was young, left them with nothing but debts. William had to start working when he was just 14, doing paper routes before school." Emma's heart beat faster. The East Side. That's where she lived now, in a small apartment with her siblings. She thought about her own mattress on the floor, given up so her youngest sister could have the bed. "But look at him now," Jennifer said, admiration clear in her voice. "Built this company from scratch, started with just a small loan from his mother's friend, if you can believe it. She'd saved up for years to help him go to college." "I remember when he first started the company," Sarah added. "This building, it was just 2 rooms in an old warehouse. He worked 18-hour days, lived on coffee and determination." Emma's sandwich sat untouched on its wrapper. She thought about William's office, how he'd listened to her story without judgment. Had he recognized something in her? A reflection of his own past? "Someone told me he still keeps his first pay stub framed in his office," Jennifer said. $200 from some convenience store. Keeps it to remember where he came from." Emma remembered the small frame she'd noticed on his wall during their meeting, but she'd been too nervous to look closely. Her mind went to her own first pay stub, carefully preserved in her mother's old Bible. "What gets me," Sarah lowered her voice, though Emma could still hear clearly, "is how he never talks about it himself. No bragging, no poor me stories, just works hard and expects the same from everyone else. Did you know he runs that scholarship program for kids from low-income families?" Jennifer added. "Pays for their college, sets them up with internships, never publicizes it though." Emma's throat tightened. She thought about her own college dreams, abandoned when her mother got sick. Her acceptance letter was still tucked away in a drawer at home, a reminder of what could have been. The 2 women gathered their things, heading back to their offices. Emma sat there, her lunch hour nearly over, mind spinning with this new information. Suddenly, William's intense focus during their interview made more sense. The way he'd studied her worn shoes, her mended jacket, not with judgment, but with understanding. She thought about how he'd offered her not just money, but opportunity. The same thing he must have wanted all those years ago. For the first time since starting at Ashford Enterprises, Emma felt something shift inside her, a spark of recognition, of possibility. The break room felt different now. Looking around at the luxury surrounding her, she saw it through new eyes. This wasn't just a display of wealth. It was a testament to transformation, to possibility. Emma stared at the calendar on her computer screen, double-checking every detail for the 5th time. The quarterly board meeting was scheduled for tomorrow morning, and Mr. Ashford had personally asked her to handle the arrangements. Her hands trembled slightly as she reviewed her checklist. Conference room booked, catering confirmed, presentation materials printed, she muttered under her breath. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders. This wasn't just about organizing coffee and pastries. This meeting would host the company's most influential board members. She glanced at her watch. 6:30 p.m. Most employees had already left, but she wanted everything to be perfect. Standing up from her desk, Emma walked to the large conference room, her sensible shoes clicking against the polished floor. The cleaning staff had already been through, leaving everything spotless. Emma adjusted the chairs around the massive oak table, making sure they were perfectly spaced. She'd spent her lunch break researching proper business meeting etiquette, learning that even small details like chair placement could make a difference. Her mother had always said attention to detail mattered, and Emma held on to that wisdom. She placed the leather portfolios she'd prepared at each seat, each containing the agenda, financial reports, and a company pen. The task had taken her hours last night, but she wanted everything to look professional. Her siblings had helped her assemble them, turning it into a small assembly line on their kitchen table. "Still here?" Emma jumped at William's voice. He stood in the doorway, his tie loosened after a long day. "Yes, sir. Just making sure everything's ready for tomorrow," she replied, straightening a portfolio that was already perfectly aligned. "You've been here since 7 this morning," he observed, walking into the room. "The meeting isn't until 9 tomorrow." Emma felt her cheeks warm. "I want to make sure nothing goes wrong." William picked up one of the portfolios, examining its contents. "These are impressive. You've organized everything by topic, with tabs." "I thought it might make discussions more efficient," Emma explained, trying to keep her voice steady. "And I added summary pages before each section." He nodded, continuing to flip through the pages. "You included the quarterly projections from all departments?" "Yes, and I cross-referenced them with last year's numbers for comparison," Emma said, gaining confidence as she explained her work. "I highlighted any significant changes in red." William set the portfolio down, looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "This is far beyond what I expected." Emma's stomach dropped. "I'm sorry if I overstepped—" "No," he interrupted, shaking his head. "This is exactly what we need. You've thought of everything." Relief flooded through her. She'd worried she'd done too much, tried too hard to prove herself. "The catering will arrive at 8 tomorrow," she continued, falling back on her checklist. "I'll be here at 7 to make sure everything's set up properly." "You don't need to come in that early," William said. "I want to," Emma insisted. "This meeting is important." William smiled slightly, and for a moment, Emma saw something familiar in his expression. The same determination she felt, the need to prove oneself worthy of an opportunity. The next morning, Emma watched from her desk as board members filed into the conference room. Each one found their seat, some nodding appreciatively at the organized materials before them. The meeting proceeded smoothly, with no technical issues or missing documents. 2 hours later, the board members emerged, looking satisfied. Emma breathed a sigh of relief as she began clearing away coffee cups and collecting unused materials. "Emma?" William's voice called from his office. "Could you come here for a moment?" She walked into his office, hands clasped together to hide their trembling. "Your work on this meeting was exceptional," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "I've been watching how you handle your responsibilities, and I'm impressed. I'd like to offer you a position as my personal assistant. It would mean a significant pay increase, but also more responsibility. Would you be interested? Emma's heart raced as she processed his words. Personal assistant to the CEO? The opportunity seemed almost too good to be true, but the faith he was showing in her abilities made her stand a little straighter. The office lights cast a soft glow as Emma sorted through financial reports on her desk. At 9 p.m., most of the building was empty except for the occasional cleaning staff. She glanced at William's office, where light still spilled from beneath the door. He'd been working late, too, preparing for tomorrow's merger presentation. Her computer pinged with an email notification. Could you help me review these numbers? Something isn't adding up. W. Emma gathered her laptop and notes, knocking softly on his office door before entering. William sat at his desk, his suit jacket draped over a chair and sleeves rolled up to his elbows. Empty coffee cups littered his desk. The fourth quarter projections seem off, he said, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. Emma pulled up a chair beside him, careful to maintain professional distance while still being able to see his screen. Which section? Manufacturing costs. He pointed to a spreadsheet. These numbers don't match our supplier contracts. They worked in comfortable silence for several minutes, the only sounds being keyboard clicks and rustling papers. Emma noticed a small detail. Here, she said, highlighting a row. The shipping costs were calculated using last year's rates. The new contract has different terms. William leaned closer to look. Good catch. We would have presented incorrect projections tomorrow. He sat back, rubbing his tired eyes. You have an eye for detail like this. Reminds me of myself when I was starting out. Emma looked up, surprised by the personal comment. William usually kept conversations strictly professional. I worked as a junior accountant when I first joined the company, he continued, his voice softer than usual. Spent countless nights like this, checking and rechecking numbers. I didn't know you started in accounting, Emma said carefully, sensing he was opening up. William nodded, his eyes distant. Couldn't afford college at first. Took night classes while working here. He glanced at a framed photo on his desk. A much younger version of himself in a graduation gown, standing beside an elderly man. My father worked 3 jobs to help me finish school. Emma thought of her own mother, who'd worked multiple jobs to support them. It must have been difficult, balancing everything. It was. William's expression softened. We lived in a small apartment above a convenience store. Dad would bring home day-old bread from the bakery where he worked nights. He paused, seeming surprised by his own openness. Not exactly the story people expect from the CEO of Ashford Enterprises. Sometimes the unexpected path makes us work harder, Emma said quietly, thinking of her own journey. William studied her for a moment. That's exactly it. Every time I wanted to quit, I remembered watching my father come home exhausted but never complaining. He taught me the value of persistence. Emma nodded, understanding completely. My mother was the same way. She always said that hard work with purpose becomes its own reward. Smart woman, William said, a genuine smile warming his features. My father used to say something similar, that true success isn't about the money, but about making a difference. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, the late-night quiet wrapping around them like a blanket. Emma felt the usual tension in her shoulders ease slightly. Here, in this moment, the vast gulf between CEO and assistant seemed smaller. We should finish these projections, William said finally, turning back to the screen. But his voice had lost its usual business-like edge, replaced by something warmer, more human. As they worked through the numbers together, Emma felt a shift in their dynamic. Each small comment or shared observation revealed another layer of understanding. William wasn't just the successful businessman she'd first met. He was someone who understood the weight of responsibility, the drive to prove oneself, the desire to make a difference. The morning sun streamed through the office windows as Emma organized William's schedule for the day. Her phone buzzed, displaying her sister Katie's number. Emma's stomach tightened. Katie never called during school hours. "Katie, what's wrong?" "It's Tommy." Katie's voice trembled. "He's really sick. The school nurse called. His fever's really high and he keeps throwing up." Emma's hand gripped the desk. "I'll be right there. Did you call Dr. Martinez?" "They said we need to bring him in, but I can't leave school. I have a test." "Stay there. I'll handle it." Emma ended the call, her mind racing. She had an important investor meeting to coordinate in an hour, but Tommy needed her. Her fingers hovered over William's office intercom. Taking a deep breath, she pressed the button. "Mr. Ashford, I have an emergency." "Come in, Emma." She entered his office, twisting her hands together. William looked up from his computer, his expression shifting from professional to concerned when he saw her face. "What's wrong?" "I'm so sorry, but I need to leave. My youngest brother Tommy is sick at school. He needs to see a doctor." The words tumbled out. "I know the investor meeting is important, but how old is Tommy?" William interrupted, already standing up. 11. Emma blinked back tears. "He's never sick like this. I'm worried." William reached for his coat. "I'll drive you." "What? No, I couldn't." "Emma," he said gently, "you're in no state to drive. The investors can wait." Before she could protest further, they were in the elevator. William's driver had the car ready by the time they reached the lobby. Emma sat in the back seat, clutching her phone, giving directions to Tommy's school. "I don't know how I'm going to afford the doctor," she whispered, more to herself than William. "We're still paying off Mom's medical bills." William's expression softened. "How long has that been weighing on you?" "Since she passed." Emma stared at her hands. "The insurance didn't cover everything. I've been making payments, but with 4 kids to feed." The car pulled up to the school. Emma rushed inside, William following quietly. In the nurse's office, Tommy lay on a cot, his face flushed with fever. He looked so small, so vulnerable. "Emmy." Tommy's voice was weak. "I don't feel good." "I'm here, buddy." She smoothed his damp hair back. "We're going to the doctor." The nurse approached with paperwork. "His temperature is 103.2. He needs immediate medical attention." Emma's hands shook as she filled out the forms, her mind calculating their meager savings. William stood by the window, making a phone call in low tones. Back in the car, Tommy leaned against Emma, shivering despite the warm day. William directed his driver to a private medical center. "This is too expensive," Emma protested. "We need to go to the clinic." "Dr. Anderson is waiting for us," William said firmly. "He's the best pediatrician in the city." "I can't. Emma." William's voice was gentle but firm. "Let me help. No one should have to worry about their family's health." She stared at him, tears welling up. "Why?" "Because I've been there." He looked at Tommy, then back at her. "When I was younger than Tommy, I got pneumonia. My father—" He paused. "He had to choose between paying rent and getting me treatment. A stranger helped us then. Sometimes we need to accept help to take care of those we love." Emma clutched Tommy closer, overwhelmed by William's kindness. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll let me help. The bills, all of them, your mother's too. Consider it done." Emma opened her mouth, but no words came. Tommy coughed weakly in her arms, and she felt tears sliding down her cheeks. William reached over and squeezed her hand briefly, before turning to look out the window, giving her a moment to collect herself. Emma adjusted her navy blazer, a recent purchase from her first real paycheck, as she walked through the gleaming lobby of Ashford Enterprises. After 3 days away caring for Tommy, who had recovered well thanks to Dr. Anderson's treatment, returning felt different. The marble floors and chrome fixtures no longer seemed as intimidating. She settled at her desk, organizing William's schedule for the day. Her inbox was surprisingly manageable. Sarah from HR had covered for her while she was out, leaving detailed notes about everything she'd handled. "Welcome back," William's voice came from behind her. She turned to find him holding 2 coffee cups, offering one to her. "I hope Tommy's feeling better?" "Much better, thank you." Emma accepted the coffee, noting it was prepared exactly how she liked it. A splash of cream, no sugar. "Dr. Anderson was wonderful. I can't thank you enough for—" William waved off her gratitude. "I'm glad he's recovered. Do you have a moment? I'd like to discuss something with you." Emma's stomach fluttered as she followed him into his office. The space had become familiar over the past weeks. The wall of windows overlooking the city, the modern art pieces, the leather chairs. She'd spent countless hours here organizing files and taking notes during meetings. "Please, sit." William gestured to one of the chairs across from his desk, but instead of taking his usual seat, he chose the chair next to hers. "I've been watching your work these past weeks, Emma. You've shown remarkable aptitude and dedication." Emma's cheeks warmed at the praise. "I'm just trying to do my best." "You do more than that. You anticipate needs before they arise. You solve problems efficiently. You've learned our systems faster than anyone I've seen." He paused, studying her. "Tell me, what do you want for your future?" The question caught her off guard. I want to provide for my siblings. Make sure they have opportunities I didn't have." "That's admirable, but I'm asking about your personal ambitions. What do you want for yourself?" Emma hesitated. No one had asked her that before. "I never really thought about it. There was always something more urgent. Bills to pay, groceries to buy, homework to help with." William nodded thoughtfully. "I understand. When I was starting out, supporting my family consumed all my energy too. But someone once told me something important. Taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's how you become strong enough to take care of others." He stood, walking to the window. "I see potential in you, Emma. Real potential. Not just to be an excellent assistant, but to lead." "Lead?" Emma's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Yes." He turned back to face her. "Our marketing department needs fresh perspective. They're stuck in old patterns, missing opportunities with younger demographics. I'd like you to start training with Sarah in HR, then transition to marketing as a junior executive." Emma's heart pounded. "But I don't have any experience in marketing, or a degree." "You have instincts. You understand people. The technical skills can be learned." He sat back down. "We'll arrange for you to take some business courses, fully funded by the company, of course. Within a year, you could be running your own team." The room seemed to spin slightly. A year ago, she'd been working 2 minimum wage jobs, barely making ends meet. Now William was offering her a career path she'd never dared imagine. "This is overwhelming," she admitted. "I know." His voice was gentle. "Take some time to think about it. But Emma?" He waited until she met his eyes. "Don't let fear of the unknown hold you back. I wouldn't offer this if I wasn't certain you could handle it." Emma nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. A stable career, better opportunities for her siblings, a chance to prove herself in ways she never thought possible. "The salary increase would be substantial," William added, "and the hours more flexible. You could be there for your family while building your future." For the first time, Emma allowed herself to imagine a future beyond just survival. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Can I have until tomorrow to think about it? She asked. Of course. William smiled. Take all the time you need. Emma stood before her new team of 3 junior marketing associates, trying to keep her voice steady. The small conference room felt impossibly large, as all eyes focused on her. So, thank you all for being here, she started, then mentally kicked herself for the weak opening. Taking a deep breath, she remembered William's words about believing in herself. I know this transition might feel unexpected, but I'm excited to work with each of you. Marcus, a recent college graduate with perfectly styled hair, raised an eyebrow. No offense, but what exactly is your marketing background? Heat crept up Emma's neck. I don't have a traditional marketing background, she admitted. But I do understand people and I know how to work hard. That's cute, Lisa muttered under her breath, just loud enough to be heard. Emma's fingers tightened around her tablet. She thought of her siblings at home, of all the times she'd pushed through difficulty for them. This was no different. Let's look at the Wilson account, Emma said, pulling up the presentation on the screen. They're losing market share with younger customers. Their social media presence is outdated, interrupted David, the third team member. We've been trying to tell them that for months. Exactly. Emma nodded. But instead of just telling them, I think we should show them. She pulled up a mock-up she'd worked on late into the previous night. Here's what their Instagram could look like with a more authentic approach. The room grew quiet as her team studied the images. Emma had replaced the stiff corporate photos with candid shots, warm lighting, and relatable scenarios. This is actually good, Lisa admitted reluctantly. They dove into the work, and Emma started to find her rhythm. She assigned tasks based on each person's strengths: Marcus's eye for design, Lisa's way with words, David's analytical skills. But 3 days later, disaster struck. The Wilson account demanded last-minute changes to their quarterly campaign, just hours before the deadline. It's impossible, Marcus declared. The graphics alone would take days to redo. Emma's mind raced. She thought of all the times she'd had to get creative with limited resources at home. What if we don't redo everything? She suggested. What if we repurpose what we have? She grabbed a marker and started sketching on the whiteboard. We can take the existing visuals and shift the message. Instead of selling the product, we sell the experience. Her team watched as she outlined her idea. Slowly, they began to nod. That could work, Lisa said, already typing. I can rewrite the copy in an hour. I'll adjust the color scheme, Marcus added. Make it feel more authentic. They worked together, the earlier tension forgotten in the rush to meet the deadline. Emma coordinated their efforts, making quick decisions when needed, stepping back when her team's expertise was better suited. Just before the final presentation, William stopped by their conference room. Emma's heart jumped as he surveyed their work. The Wilsons just called, he said, his expression unreadable. They're thrilled with the direction, said it's exactly what they needed. The team exchanged surprised looks. Emma, William continued, they specifically mentioned how the campaign feels more genuine than anything they've seen before. Good work. After he left, Emma let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Her team was looking at her differently now. Hey, David said, gathering his things. Some of us are getting drinks after work. Want to join? Emma smiled, feeling something shift in the room. I'd like that. As they packed up for the day, Lisa paused by Emma's desk. That was pretty impressive, how you handled everything. Maybe... She hesitated. Maybe you could show me that authentic photography technique sometime? Of course, Emma replied, her confidence growing. She looked around at her small office, at the team that was starting to accept her, at the work they'd created together. For the first time, She felt like she truly belonged here. Emma's heels clicked against the polished marble floor as she followed William out of the conference room. Her heart was still racing from their successful presentation to Global Tech, one of the biggest potential clients they'd pitched to this year. The executive board's faces had lit up at their innovative marketing strategy, and Emma could still feel the electricity in the air from their enthusiasm. "That was incredible work in there," William said, loosening his tie as they walked toward the elevator. "The way you handled their concerns about market penetration was brilliant." Emma smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I just remembered what you taught me about addressing the underlying fears, not just the surface questions." "You've come so far from asking for $2 for milk," William said softly, pressing the lobby button. "Though I have to admit, that moment caught my attention for a reason. It showed character." The elevator descended smoothly, and Emma felt the familiar flutter of nerves she always got when alone with William. Despite months of working closely together, his presence still commanded respect. "I'd like to discuss something important with you," William continued. "Would you join me for dinner?" Emma glanced at her phone, thinking of her siblings. "I should check on—" "I took the liberty of asking Sarah to watch your brothers and sister tonight," William said, referring to his trusted housekeeper. "I hope you don't mind. This is important." The elevator doors opened to the lobby, now quiet in the early evening hours. "In that case, I'd be honored," Emma replied, curiosity piqued. William drove them to La Maison, an elegant French restaurant where the maitre d' greeted him by name. They were led to a private corner booth, softly lit by crystal sconces. Emma smoothed her navy pencil skirt, suddenly conscious of her modest attire in such an upscale setting. "Order whatever you'd like," William said, handing her a leather-bound menu. "The coq au vin here is exceptional." After their orders were taken, William leaned back, studying her with an intensity that made Emma's cheeks warm. "Do you know why I hired you that day?" he asked suddenly. Emma shook her head. "I assumed it was pity at first," she admitted. "Then I thought maybe it was because you saw something familiar in my situation." "Partially," William nodded. "But mainly it was your eyes. When you asked for that $2, you weren't begging. You were determined, ready to do whatever it took to care for your family. That's rare." Their appetizers arrived, delicate mushroom tartlets that made Emma's mouth water. She waited until the server left before responding. "I didn't have a choice," she said softly. "They needed me." "We always have choices," William replied. "You chose to step up, to sacrifice, just like you chose to work harder than anyone else at the company, to learn everything you could, to prove yourself worthy of every opportunity." Emma took a sip of water, touched by his words. "You gave me those opportunities." "No," William shook his head. "I opened doors. You walked through them on your own merit." Their main courses arrived, steam rising from perfectly plated dishes. William waited until they were alone again before continuing. "Emma, I've been watching you grow in this company. The way you handle clients, inspire your team, generate innovative solutions, it's exceptional. You have something rare, both the vision to see what needs to be done and the determination to make it happen." Emma's fork paused halfway to her mouth. There was something in his tone that made her pulse quicken. "I didn't get where I am by ignoring talent," William continued, his blue eyes intense. "And I've never been more certain of anything than I am about this." He reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a leather portfolio, sliding it across the table to her. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she opened it. "I see so much potential in you," William said quietly. "I want you to have a stake in this company, a real partnership." Emma stared at the documents before her, her vision blurring slightly. Partnership agreement, stock options, profit sharing. The numbers made her dizzy. I don't know what to say," she whispered, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he was offering. Emma sat at her new desk, running her fingers along the smooth mahogany surface. The corner office on the 32nd floor offered a stunning view of the city skyline, but her attention was fixed on the nameplate before her. Emma Matthews, executive partner. Still getting used to it? William's voice came from her doorway. He leaned against the frame, a gentle smile on his face. Honestly, I keep expecting to wake up, Emma admitted, adjusting the frame holding her sibling's photo on her desk. Last month I was your assistant, and now you're exactly where you deserve to be. William walked in, settling into one of the chairs facing her desk. The Anderson contract needs your attention. They're requesting changes to the delivery timeline. Emma nodded, pulling up the file on her computer. This was the largest account she'd ever handled, worth millions. The numbers no longer made her dizzy, but the responsibility still weighed heavily. I've reviewed their requests, she said, turning the screen so William could see. If we adjust our supply chain here and here, we can meet their new deadlines without compromising our other commitments. William studied the modifications, nodding appreciatively. You've thought of everything. I particularly like how you've built in contingency time without affecting the bottom line. Emma felt a warm glow of pride. These were the moments that made her partnership feel real, when her solutions actually made a difference. Later that afternoon, Emma led her first board meeting as partner. Her navy suit, bought with her first partnership bonus, gave her confidence as she presented the quarterly projections. The same executives who once barely noticed her now leaned forward, taking notes as she spoke. As you can see, Emma gestured to the screen behind her, our new initiative to expand into sustainable energy solutions has already attracted significant interest. We're projecting a 15% increase in revenue by quarter's end. Excellent work, Ms. Matthews, Mr. Richardson, the oldest board member, commented. William, you were right about her potential. After the meeting, Emma returned to her office to find a small gift bag on her desk. Inside was a framed dollar bill with a note in William's handwriting. Worth more than $2 now. The gesture brought tears to her eyes. She remembered that desperate day, standing in the lobby with barely enough money for bus fare home. Now she had a driver waiting downstairs if she needed one. Emma spent the rest of the afternoon in budget meetings, reviewing department proposals, and mentoring junior staff. She made a point to be especially kind to the new receptionist, remembering her own early days. Ms. Matthews, her assistant Sarah poked her head in. Your brother's school called. They wanted to confirm you're attending his honor roll ceremony next week. Absolutely, Emma smiled. Block out the whole morning. This is more important than any meeting. As evening approached, Emma gathered her things, declining William's offer to share his car service. She preferred taking the subway home these days. It kept her grounded, reminded her of where she came from. Standing on the platform, she thought about the changes in her life. Her siblings were thriving, all in good schools, well-fed, with bright futures ahead. Their apartment, while not luxurious, was comfortable and in a safe neighborhood. There were no more nights lying awake wondering how to pay bills. On the train, Emma opened her planner to review tomorrow's schedule. Client meetings, strategy sessions, a lunch with potential investors. Her mother would have been proud, she thought, seeing her daughter's signature now carrying real weight in the business world. The subway car swayed gently as it moved through the city. Emma watched her reflection in the window, remembering that frightened young woman who had walked into Ashford Enterprises months ago. She hardly recognized herself now. Not just the tailored clothes and confident posture, but the sense of purpose in her eyes. William's faith in her had changed everything. But more than that, he'd given her the chance to prove her own worth. The partnership wasn't charity. She'd earned it through countless late nights, innovative solutions, and unwavering dedication. Emma sat cross-legged on her old living room floor, sorting through a box of her mother's belongings, while her siblings played in the next room. The afternoon sun filtered through worn curtains, casting a warm glow over faded photographs and cherished memories. "Oh my goodness, is that little Emma?" Mrs. Rodriguez, her mother's best friend, picked up a dusty photo frame from the box. She and Mrs. Chen had stopped by to help with the spring cleaning, but mostly they shared stories about the old days. "Look how tiny she was," Mrs. Chen smiled, adjusting her glasses. "Your mother was so proud of you, always working extra shifts to make sure you kids had everything you needed." Emma touched the photograph gently. "I wish I remembered more about those days. I was so young when she started getting sick." Mrs. Rodriguez settled into the worn armchair, her eyes distant. "Your mother was the hardest worker I knew. Even when she cleaned houses for the wealthy families uptown, she always kept her dignity." "The wealthy families?" Emma's head snapped up. Her interest piqued. "Oh yes," Mrs. Chen nodded. "She worked for some very important people. There was this one family. The father was such a kind man, a real gentleman, unlike some of the others who looked down on the help." Mrs. Rodriguez shot Mrs. Chen a meaningful look. "That's right, the Ashfords. Such a shame what happened to them later." Emma's heart skipped a beat. "Did you say Ashfords?" But Mrs. Rodriguez had already moved on, picking up another photograph. "Oh, look at this one from your 5th birthday." Emma wanted to press further, but something held her back. The women continued reminiscing, but her mind was racing. Could it be the same Ashfords? William's family? Later that evening, after her visitors had left and her siblings were in bed, Emma sat at her laptop. The soft glow of the screen illuminated her face as she searched through old newspaper archives. "Ashford Industries founder dies in tragic accident," read one headline from 15 years ago. Emma clicked through, scanning the article. There was a photograph of a younger William at the funeral, standing beside his mother. She opened another tab, searching deeper. Articles about the Ashford family's early years in the city began to surface. One caught her eye, a society page piece about charitable work. In the background of a grainy photograph, she spotted a familiar face that made her gasp. There was her mother, younger and healthier, wearing a housekeeper's uniform. She stood in the background while the Ashfords posed for the camera at some charity event. The caption listed the names of the family members, but not the staff. Emma's fingers trembled as she zoomed in on the image. Her mother's kind eyes looked back at her, and beside her stood William's father, caught mid-conversation with her. They both wore genuine smiles. More pieces started falling into place. The way William had really listened that first day, when most CEOs would have dismissed her. How he'd understood her situation so completely. His father must have known her mother, known their family's struggles. She found herself going through her mother's old address book, discovered in the box of memories. There, in faded ink, was a number listed under Mr. A. Emergency. The paper was worn at the edges as if it had been opened many times. Emma sat back in her chair, overwhelmed by the connections she was discovering. Was it possible that her desperate visit to Ashford Enterprises hadn't been just chance? Had some greater force been at work, bringing her life full circle? She thought about William's immediate offer of help, his continued support, the opportunities he'd given her. It seemed too perfect to be mere coincidence, yet she knew he'd never treated her with anything but respect for her own abilities. The night grew quiet around her as Emma absorbed these revelations. Outside, the city hummed softly, while inside, her mind whirled with questions about the past and its connection to her present. Emma's heels clicked against the polished floor of Ashford Enterprises as she made her way to William's office. Her heart pounded the old newspaper clippings and photographs weighing heavily in her bag. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the hallway. "Is he available?" she asked William's secretary, trying to keep her voice steady. "Go right in, Ms. Porter. He's expecting you." William sat behind his desk, reviewing documents. He looked up with a warm smile that quickly faded when he saw her serious expression. "Emma? Is everything all right?" She closed the door behind her and took a deep breath. "I need to ask you something, William." Her fingers trembled as she pulled out the old photograph. "This is from a charity event 15 years ago." William's face changed as she laid the photograph on his desk. He picked it up carefully, his eyes fixed on the image. "Where did you find this?" "I was going through some old things with my mother's friends." Emma's voice wavered. "They mentioned that she worked for your family." William set the photograph down slowly, running his hand through his hair. The morning light caught the silver at his temples. "I was wondering when this would come up." "So it's true?" Emma sank into the chair across from him. "You knew about the connection all along?" He stood up and walked to the window, hands in his pockets. "Your mother worked for us for several years. She was—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "She was more than just an employee to my family." "What do you mean?" William turned back to face her. "When my mother died, your mother helped my father raise me for a while. She was kind, always making sure I had a proper breakfast before school, helping me with my homework." His voice grew softer. "She treated me like her own son." Emma felt tears welling up in her eyes. "She never told me." "She was humble that way." William smiled sadly. "When she got sick, my father wanted to help, but she wouldn't accept anything more than her regular wages. She was proud, independent." "But before she passed," William continued, moving back to his desk, "my father made her a promise. He swore he would look after her children if anything happened to her." Emma's breath caught in her throat. Is that why you helped me that day, when I came asking for $2? William leaned forward, his eyes intense. "When I heard your name that day, I knew exactly who you were. But Emma," he said firmly, "everything that's happened since then, your success, your partnership in this company, that's all been you. Your mother's connection to my family might have opened the door, but you're the one who walked through it." "Why didn't you tell me?" Emma whispered. "I wanted to, many times." William stood again, pacing slowly. "But I was afraid you might think everything was handed to you out of obligation. I wanted you to know that you earned your place here." Emma sat in silence, processing everything. The past months replayed in her mind, every opportunity, every moment of support, now tinged with new meaning. "My father passed away before he could fulfill his promise," William said quietly. "When you walked into this building that day, I felt like it was more than coincidence. It was a chance to honor both our parents' memories." Tears rolled down Emma's cheeks as she remembered her mother, her strength, her dignity, her unwavering love. "She would have been proud," she managed to say. "Of both of us, I think," William replied softly. "She always said that true success wasn't just about making money. It was about lifting others up along the way." Emma wiped her eyes, looking at the photograph again. Her mother's smile seemed to shine brighter now, knowing the full story behind it. The weight of the past and present pressed against her chest, filled with both grief and gratitude. "Thank you," she said finally, "for keeping his promise." Emma stared at the quarterly report on her tablet, her stomach dropping with each swipe. The numbers weren't just bad, they were devastating. Ashford Enterprises had just lost Global Tech, their biggest client, to Rivera Industries. The loss would slash their revenue by 30%. She sat at her desk, running her fingers through her hair as she tried to make sense of it all. Just last week, everything had seemed perfect. Now the weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders like a physical burden. Sarah, her assistant, knocked softly on her office door. "Ms. Porter, the department heads are gathering in conference room A. They're concerned." Emma nodded, straightening her blazer as she stood. "Thank you, Sarah. I'll be right there." The tension in the conference room was palpable. Worried faces looked up as Emma entered, their conversations dropping to whispers. She could feel their anxiety. These people had families, mortgages, children in college. The loss of Global Tech didn't just affect the bottom line, it affected real lives. "What happened?" Marcus from sales demanded, his voice sharp with fear. "We've had Global Tech for 15 years. Emma took a deep breath. "Rivera Industries undercut our bid by 20%. They're operating at a loss to steal our market share." "Can we match their price?" Jennifer from operations asked. "Not without compromising quality," Emma replied, "and even then we'd be bleeding money." The room erupted in overlapping voices, each department head offering suggestions or expressing concerns. Emma felt the pressure building behind her temples. These people looked to her for answers, and right now she didn't have any. Her phone buzzed. A message from William. "My office. Now." Emma excused herself and made her way to the top floor. William stood at his window, hands clasped behind his back, looking out over the city. He didn't turn when she entered. "The board is meeting tomorrow," he said quietly. "They're nervous, Emma. This isn't just about Global Tech, it's about market confidence. If word gets out that we lost them, other clients might start questioning their contracts." Emma sank into one of the leather chairs. "I know. I've been running numbers all morning, looking for ways to cut costs without laying people off." William finally turned, his face etched with concern. "We might not have a choice. Rivera's playing dirty, but they're playing smart. They know taking Global Tech hurts us more than it helps them." "There has to be another way," Emma insisted, pulling out her tablet. "Look at these projections. If we pivot now, focus on emerging markets instead of competing directly with Rivera." William sat down across from her, studying the numbers she displayed. "That's risky, Emma. We'd be venturing into unknown territory." "But that's exactly why it could work," she argued, her voice gaining strength. "Rivera's focused on undercutting established markets. They're not looking at the new tech startups, the green energy sector, the artificial intelligence firms. We could build relationships there, get in on the ground floor." "Those markets are unstable," William cautioned. "We'd be betting everything on unproven companies." "Sometimes the biggest risks bring the biggest rewards," Emma said softly, remembering the day she'd walked into this building asking for $2. "You took a chance on me once?" William leaned back in his chair, considering her words. "Show me more," he said finally. "What exactly are you proposing?" Emma pulled up more data, spreading it across his desk screen. "These 5 startups are developing revolutionary technology. They're small now, but their potential is enormous. If we offer them preferential rates, support their growth—" "We'd be operating at a loss initially," William pointed out. "Yes," Emma admitted. "But if even 2 of these companies succeed, their loyalty would be worth 10 times what we lost with Global Tech." William studied the projections, his expression thoughtful but worried. The silence stretched between them as the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across his office. Finally, he looked up at Emma, his eyes searching her face. "It's a bold strategy," he said carefully. "Maybe too bold. We'd be risking everything we've built." Emma met his gaze steadily. "Sometimes you have to risk everything to save everything." Emma stood before the board members, her heart pounding but her voice steady. The presentation screen behind her displayed graphs and projections she'd spent 3 sleepless nights preparing. William sat at the head of the long mahogany table, his expression neutral but supportive. "Ladies and gentlemen," Emma began, "losing Global Tech was a setback, but it's also an opportunity. While Rivera Industries focuses on price wars in established markets, we can position ourselves at the forefront of emerging technologies." She clicked to the next slide, showing 5 company logos. These startups represent the future. Green energy, artificial intelligence, quantum computing. They're small now, but their potential is enormous. Marcus from sales shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "These companies have no track record. How can we justify offering them preferential rates when we're already struggling?" "Because they're hungry," Emma replied, her confidence growing. "They need partners who believe in their vision. By supporting them now, we build loyalty that will last decades." Jennifer from operations leaned forward. "The initial investment would be substantial. We'd be operating at a loss for at least the first year." "Yes," Emma acknowledged. "But look at the growth projections." She switched to a graph showing exponential curves. "If even 2 of these 5 companies succeed as predicted, our returns would triple our current revenue within 5 years. The room buzzed with whispered conversations. William remained silent, watching the reactions around the table. Emma could see the divide forming. The younger executives looked excited, while the more seasoned members appeared skeptical. "This is madness," Howard from finance declared, his face reddening. "We should be consolidating our existing client base, not gambling on unproven startups." "With respect," Emma countered, "consolidating means competing directly with Rivera on price. That's a battle we can't win." She pulled up another slide showing market trends. "But look here, investment in green tech has grown 300% in the past 3 years. AI implementation is expanding across every sector. These aren't gambles, they're the future." Sarah, the youngest board member, nodded enthusiastically. "She's right. My daughter's high school is already using AI learning platforms. The market is there." The debate continued, growing heated at times. Emma stood her ground, answering questions with data-driven responses she'd prepared. She could see some minds beginning to change, but others remained firmly opposed. Finally, William raised his hand for silence. "Emma, what's your timeline for implementation?" 3 phases over 18 months, she replied, bringing up a detailed timeline. Phase 1 focuses on building relationships and infrastructure. Phase 2 begins service integration. Phase 3 expands our support as these companies grow. "And the total investment required?" William asked, though she knew he already had the numbers. $12 million for Phase 1, Emma stated clearly, with additional funding based on performance metrics. The room erupted again. $12 million was a significant portion of their reserves, especially after losing Global Tech. Howard looked like he might have a stroke. William stood slowly, commanding attention. "I've reviewed Emma's proposal in detail. Yes, it's risky. Yes, it requires significant investment. But I believe she's identified something crucial. The market isn't just changing, it's transforming. We can either lead that transformation or be left behind." He looked around the table, meeting each person's eyes. "I'm putting this to a vote. All in favor?" Hands began to rise. Emma held her breath, counting. Sarah's hand shot up immediately, followed by others. The younger executives all voted in favor. Some of the older members hesitated, then slowly raised their hands. 12 votes in favor, 3 against, William announced. "The motion passes." He turned to Emma. "Ms. Porter, you have your funding. Don't make us regret this decision." Emma nodded, her throat tight with emotion. "Thank you for your trust. I won't let you down." As the board members filed out, some offering congratulations while others hurried past with worried expressions. Emma gathered her materials with trembling hands. The weight of $12 million and countless jobs now rested on her shoulders. William approached her quietly. "The hard part starts now," he said softly. "Are you ready?" Emma squared her shoulders, thinking of how far she'd come from that day she'd asked for $2. "Yes," she replied firmly. "I'm ready." Emma stood by the window of her new corner office, watching the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled over the skyline. 3 months had passed since the board approved her ambitious plan, and initially, everything seemed perfect. 2 of the 5 startups had already signed exclusive contracts, and negotiations with the others were progressing well. Her desk phone buzzed. "Ms. Porter, there's an urgent call from GreenTech Solutions." "Put them through," Emma replied, straightening her posture despite being alone in the room. "Emma, we need to talk." Marcus Chen, GreenTech's CEO, sounded stressed. "Our latest round of funding fell through. We're having to scale back operations significantly." Emma's stomach dropped. GreenTech was their biggest bet, accounting for nearly a third of their initial investment. "How bad is it?" "Bad enough that we'll need to terminate our contract. I'm sorry, but we can't maintain the service level agreement at our current capacity." After hanging up, Emma slumped in her chair. Her hands trembled as she pulled up the project dashboard. The numbers were already concerning. Implementation costs had run higher than projected, and revenue was trailing behind forecasts. Losing GreenTech would make their targets impossible to meet. The next few weeks brought more bad news. Quantum Leap, another promising startup, announced they were being acquired by a competitor. The acquiring company already had existing service contracts, making Ashford's involvement redundant. Emma worked late into the night, trying to salvage what she could. The office felt eerily quiet, with only the hum of the cleaning crew's vacuum cleaners breaking the silence. Her computer screen showed a sea of red figures, projected losses mounting with each adjustment to the forecasts. During the day, she maintained a brave face, but she couldn't ignore the whispers in the hallways or the concerned glances from her team. Howard from finance made no attempt to hide his "I told you so" attitude, loudly discussing reckless gambles whenever she was within earshot. The final blow came when AI Tech, their smallest but most innovative partner, announced they were suspending operations due to patent infringement claims. Emma stared at the email, feeling numb. 3 of their 5 partners gone in less than a month. That afternoon, she had to present the quarterly results to the board. The numbers were devastating. Not only had they lost the initial investment in the failed partnerships, but the resources devoted to implementation meant they'd missed opportunities with traditional clients. Their market share had dropped another 15%. "Ms. Porter," William's assistant called from the doorway. "Mr. Ashford would like to see you in his office." Emma gathered her tablet and files, her legs feeling heavy as she walked down the corridor. She'd failed. Failed the company, failed William's trust in her, failed herself. The $2 she'd once asked for now seemed like a cruel joke compared to the millions she'd lost. William was standing at his window when she entered, looking out at the same city view she'd admired from her office just weeks ago. He turned as she closed the door, his expression unreadable. "Sit down, Emma," he said quietly. She perched on the edge of the chair, clutching her tablet like a shield. "I'm so sorry, William. I thought—" He held up a hand, stopping her. "Do you know how many times I failed before I succeeded?" Emma blinked, thrown by the unexpected question. 7 major failures, he continued. "Lost everything twice. The first time I thought my career was over. I was younger than you are now." He sat down across from her, his eyes kind but serious. "I'm disappointed in the outcome, yes, but I'm not disappointed in you." But the money, the opportunities we lost, Emma's voice cracked, are substantial, William agreed. But you saw something others didn't. Your instincts about the market shifting were correct. The timing and execution weren't right, but the vision wasn't wrong. Emma felt tears threatening and blinked hard to hold them back. I'll work harder, she promised. I'll find a way to make it right. William nodded. I know you will. That's why you're still here. But first, learn from this. Understand what went wrong, so your next attempt will be stronger. Emma's laptop cast a blue glow across her living room as the clock ticked past midnight. Empty coffee cups littered her desk, and her siblings' drawings covered the wall behind her, reminders of why she couldn't give up. She rubbed her tired eyes, struggling to focus on the spreadsheet before her. Her phone buzzed. A text from William. Get some rest. Solutions come easier with a clear mind. But rest felt impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the disappointing numbers, heard the whispers in the hallways. She'd been working late every night this week, searching for a way to recover from their losses. The morning light found her still at her desk, now surrounded by handwritten notes and market analysis reports. Her younger sister Sarah peeked in before leaving for school. Emmy, you didn't sleep again? Sarah's concerned face made Emma feel guilty. Just a little work to finish, Emma forced a smile. Have a good day at school, sweetie. At the office, Emma couldn't ignore the dark circles under her eyes reflected in her computer screen. She was reviewing their failed partnerships for the 100th time when William appeared at her door. Walk with me, he said simply. They rode the elevator to the roof garden, a quiet space usually reserved for corporate events. The morning air was crisp, and the city stretched out before them. You're pushing yourself too hard, William said, handing her a coffee from the cafe downstairs. I have to fix this. Emma's voice was hoarse from lack of sleep. Everyone trusted me, and you made a bold move that didn't work out, William interrupted. But destroying yourself won't solve anything. He led her to a bench overlooking the city. Do you know what I see when I look at you? Emma shook her head, cradling the warm coffee cup. I see someone who came here asking for $2 for milk, who turned that moment into an opportunity to change not just her life, but others' lives too. Someone who hasn't lost that drive to help others, even now. His words made Emma think about the failed partnerships differently. Each one had been chosen not just for profit potential, but for their innovative approaches to solving real problems. The companies we chose, she said slowly, they all had good ideas, solid foundations. They just couldn't survive the current market conditions. William nodded, encouraging her to continue. We lost them because they were trying to stand alone against bigger competitors, Emma continued, her mind starting to race. But what if they didn't have to? She pulled out her tablet, suddenly energized. Look at these companies. GreenTech's sustainable energy solutions, Quantum Leap's data processing innovations. iTech's patents might be challenged, but their underlying technology is solid. What are you thinking? William leaned in, interested. Instead of partnering with them separately, what if we created a technology incubator? Bring them all under one roof, combine their strengths. Emma's fingers flew across the tablet. We could provide the infrastructure, legal support, and market access they lack. They could share resources, collaborate on solutions. She looked up at William, her eyes bright despite her exhaustion. The market isn't ready for them individually, but together, with our support, they could be stronger than any single competitor. William studied her proposal, his expression thoughtful. It would require restructuring our entire approach to partnerships. But we already have the relationships, the infrastructure, Emma pressed. We wouldn't be starting from scratch. And think about the potential, not just for profit, but for actual innovation. She pulled up more figures, showing how the combined resources could create efficiencies none of them could achieve alone. We could even bring in smaller startups, create a whole ecosystem of innovation. William was quiet for a long moment, reviewing the numbers. Finally, he looked up at Emma with a slight smile. This could work. It's still risky, but it addresses the fundamental issues that caused the original failures. Should I prepare a formal proposal? Emma asked, hope rising in her chest for the first time in weeks. Yes, William nodded. But first, go home. Get some real sleep. Come back tomorrow with a fresh mind, and we'll work on this together. Emma gathered her things, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. As she headed for the elevator, William called after her. Emma, this is why I believed in you from the start. You don't just see problems, you see possibilities. Emma stood at the back of the conference room, watching as representatives from Green Tech and Quantum Leap shook hands. After weeks of negotiations, the first partnerships for their new technology incubator were becoming reality. The excitement in the room was palpable, a stark contrast to the tense atmosphere that had filled the building just a month ago. This is a groundbreaking partnership, Green Tech's CEO announced, beaming. With Ashford Enterprises' support and the collaborative possibilities, we can finally bring our sustainable energy solutions to market. From her position, Emma noticed how the Ashford employees in the room stood taller, their expressions brighter than they'd been since the downturn. Sarah, her assistant, caught her eye and gave her a subtle thumbs up. Later that afternoon, Emma reviewed the latest financial projections. The numbers were encouraging, not just from the new partnerships, but from returning clients who'd heard about their innovative approach. 3 other small tech companies had already reached out about joining the incubator. Mind if I interrupt? William's voice came from her doorway. He held up 2 cups of coffee from the cafe downstairs. Emma welcomed him in, clearing space on her desk. I was just looking at the numbers. The recovery is happening faster than we projected. I saw. William settled into the chair across from her. The board is impressed. But more importantly, did you see the email from AI Tech this morning? About their new breakthrough? Emma smiled. Using our legal team's advice to work around the patent issues was brilliant, and now that they're collaborating with Quantum Leap's data processing division, they've solved their biggest technical challenge, William finished. That's the power of your incubator model, Emma. These companies aren't just surviving anymore, they're thriving. A knock at the door interrupted them. Sarah poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but the staff is gathering in the main conference room for the quarterly update. They're waiting for you both. Emma gathered her materials, but William touched her arm. Actually, I'd like you to present the update today. Me? Emma's stomach fluttered. But you always handle the quarterly meetings. This is your vision we're implementing, William said firmly. You should be the one to share our progress. The main conference room was packed when they arrived. Emma saw familiar faces from every department, all looking expectantly at her as she took her place at the podium. Taking a deep breath, she began. 3 months ago, we faced what seemed like an insurmountable challenge, she started, her voice growing stronger as she spoke. But today, I'm proud to announce that Ashford Enterprises isn't just recovering, we're revolutionizing how we do business. She walked them through the numbers, the successful partnerships, the returning clients, the innovative solutions emerging from their technology incubator. With each slide, she could see the energy in the room building. But the most exciting part, she continued, isn't just in these numbers. It's in what we're creating together. A space where innovation isn't just about profit, it's about possibility. Where smaller companies can grow without sacrificing their vision. Where collaboration creates opportunities none of us could achieve alone. As she concluded her presentation, the room burst into applause. William stepped forward, taking the podium. What Emma's too modest to say. he addressed the room, is that this transformation is largely due to her insight and determination. When others saw crisis, she saw opportunity. When others were ready to retreat, she pushed us to innovate." Emma felt her cheeks warm as William continued. "Thanks to her leadership, we're not just recovering from a setback. We're emerging stronger, smarter, and better positioned for the future than ever before." The applause that followed was even louder than before. As Emma looked around the room at her colleagues' smiling faces, she felt something she hadn't experienced since the crisis began. Genuine pride. Not just in the numbers or the successful partnerships, but in what they'd all accomplished together. For the first time, she truly felt like she belonged here. Not as the girl who once asked for $2 for milk, but as a leader who had helped guide her company through one of its toughest challenges. Emma sat at her desk, staring at the cream-colored envelope William's assistant had just delivered. Her name was written in William's distinctive handwriting, the strokes bold and precise. She ran her finger along the sealed edge, wondering why he'd chosen to write her a letter when they worked in the same building. With careful movements, she opened the envelope. Inside, she found a weathered photograph and a folded letter. The photograph caught her attention first. Its edges were worn soft, the colors faded to gentle sepia tones. As she studied it, her breath caught in her throat. There, standing in what appeared to be a garden, was her mother, young, vibrant, and smiling. She wore a simple dress and stood next to a distinguished-looking man Emma had never seen before. But something in his features reminded her of William. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the letter. "Dear Emma, there's something I've wanted to share with you for some time, but I needed to find the right moment. The photograph you're holding was taken 25 years ago in my family's garden. The man standing beside your mother is my father. Your mother worked as our family's housekeeper for several years when I was young. She was more than just an employee. She became a friend to our family, especially to my father. Her kindness and work ethic left a lasting impression on us all. I remember how she would sometimes bring you to our house when you were very small. You probably don't remember. You were only 3 or 4 at the time. You would sit quietly in the kitchen, coloring while your mother worked. The day your mother left our employment to care for her own ailing mother, my father made her a promise. He saw how worried she was about providing for you and your siblings. He promised her that one day, if you ever needed help, our family would be there. When you walked into our office that day, asking for $2 for milk, I recognized your last name immediately. I had been looking for ways to fulfill my father's promise for years, but your family had moved, and we lost touch after your mother's passing. Your success here isn't because of that promise. It's because of your own hard work, determination, and brilliant mind. But I wanted you to know that your mother's legacy played a part in bringing you here. She was an extraordinary woman who touched many lives, including mine and my father's. The company's transformation under your leadership would have made her incredibly proud. I know it has made me proud to see you grow from that nervous young woman asking for milk money into the confident, compassionate leader you are today. Your mother's spirit of kindness, determination, and grace lives on in you. Emma, I hope knowing this gives you as much joy as it has given me to finally share it. With deep respect and admiration, William. Emma's vision blurred with tears as she traced her mother's face in the photograph. Memories flooded back. The smell of her mother's perfume, the sound of her laugh, the way she would hum while cooking dinner. Even in their hardest times, her mother had never lost her dignity or her kindness. She remembered her mother's words from long ago. Everything we do creates ripples, Emma. Sometimes we don't see where they go, but they matter. Now she understood. Her mother's kindness had created ripples that had carried Emma to where she was today. The thought filled her with a profound sense of peace. Her journey wasn't just her own. It was part of something larger, a continuation of her mother's legacy of grace and perseverance, the success she'd achieved, the lives she'd touched through her work, the positive changes she'd brought to the company. All of it honored her mother's memory. Emma carefully placed the photograph on her desk, propping it against her computer monitor where she could see it clearly. In that moment, she felt complete, as if the final piece of a puzzle had fallen into place. Her mother's spirit had been with her all along, guiding her path, leading her to this moment of understanding and fulfillment. Emma stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of her office, watching the city lights twinkle in the early evening darkness. Her reflection showed a woman she barely recognized from just a year ago. Confident, well-dressed, and carrying herself with quiet assurance. Gone were the threadbare clothes and the constant worry lines around her eyes. She picked up the photograph of her mother from her desk, studying it for what felt like the 100th time that day. The connection to William's family felt like more than coincidence. It felt like destiny. Her mother's influence had shaped not only her character, but had somehow guided her to this exact place. Walking around her spacious office, Emma touched the sleek furniture, remembering her first day as a receptionist. The overwhelming feeling of being an outsider, the gnawing fear that someone would realize she didn't belong. Now, project proposals and financial reports covered her desk, and she handled them with the same determination she'd once applied to stretching a meager paycheck to feed her siblings. Her younger brothers and sisters were thriving now. The oldest was in college, the younger ones in good schools, and their home was comfortable and secure. She'd done what she'd promised her mother she would do. She'd taken care of their family. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. William stood in her doorway, his familiar warm smile lighting up his face. Lost in thought? Just reflecting, Emma replied, gesturing to the photograph. It's amazing how life works out sometimes. Speaking of which, William said, stepping into her office, I was hoping you might join me for dinner tonight. We should celebrate your latest achievement. That deal you closed with Richardson Industries was impressive. Emma smiled, remembering the challenging negotiations that had finally concluded successfully that morning. I'd like that. They chose a quiet restaurant nearby, one where they'd had many business dinners before. But tonight felt different, more personal, more relaxed. After they ordered, William leaned back in his chair, studying her with genuine warmth. You know, Emma, I've been thinking about the day you first walked into our building. Do you remember what you were wearing? Emma laughed softly. How could I forget? That faded blue sweater with the tiny hole in the sleeve that I tried to hide. I was so embarrassed. And now look at you, William said, his voice filled with pride. You've completely transformed not just yourself, but parts of our company. Your idea to create a mentorship program for underprivileged youth has already started changing lives. I just wanted to give others the same chance you gave me, Emma replied, stirring her water with the straw. Sometimes all people need is an opportunity to prove themselves. It's more than that, William insisted. You've brought compassion and innovation together in a way that's improved our bottom line while also making a real difference in people's lives. That's something special, Emma. Their food arrived, and they spent the next few minutes in comfortable silence, enjoying their meals. Emma noticed how natural it felt now, sitting across from the man she'd once found so intimidating. William wasn't just her boss anymore. He was a mentor, a friend, someone who understood both where she'd come from and where she was going. I've been thinking about the future, William said, setting down his fork. About the legacy we're building here. Your mother would be incredibly proud of you, Emma, not just because of your success, but because of how you've achieved it, with integrity, kindness, and determination. Emma felt tears prick at her corners of her eyes. I hope so. I try to make decisions that would make her proud. You do, William assured her. Every day. The way you lead your team, the way you handle challenges, The way you never forget where you came from. It all matters. You've created something remarkable here, Emma, and I'm proud to have played a small part in your journey." "Small part?" Emma shook her head, smiling. "You changed my life, William. You saw something in me when I couldn't see it in myself." "No," he corrected gently. "I just opened a door. You're the one who walked through it and kept going. Your success is your own. Emma, never doubt that." Emma stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, watching the city come alive in the early morning light. The view still took her breath away, even after all these months. She smoothed down her tailored navy suit, a far cry from the threadbare sweater she'd worn on her first day, and turned to face her desk, where quarterly reports awaited her review. Her assistant, Sarah, knocked softly before entering with a fresh cup of coffee. "The department heads are ready for the morning meeting, Ms. Thompson." "Thank you, Sarah," Emma smiled, gathering her tablet and notes. "And please, I've told you, it's just Emma." Walking into the conference room, Emma felt a surge of pride as the department heads, many of whom had once intimidated her, stood to greet her. She'd earned their respect through countless late nights, innovative solutions, and unwavering dedication to both the company's success and its people. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice steady and confident. "Let's review the implementation of our new community outreach program." As Emma led the meeting, she noticed William watching from the doorway, a pleased expression on his face. She'd developed a natural leadership style that combined sharp business acumen with genuine care for people, something that had transformed the company's culture. The meeting progressed smoothly, as Emma guided discussions about expanding their mentorship program to include more underprivileged youth and creating partnerships with local schools. Her own experience had shaped these initiatives, and the results were already showing in both community impact and positive press coverage. "The numbers speak for themselves," Emma concluded, displaying the latest statistics. "We've seen a 15% increase in employee satisfaction since implementing these programs, and our retention rate has never been higher." After the meeting, William asked Emma to join him in his office. The familiar space, with its leather chairs and carefully curated art, no longer intimidated her. She'd spent countless hours here, learning, growing, and eventually contributing her own ideas as an equal. "That was impressive," William said, settling into his chair. "You've really found your voice, Emma. The way you handle the board, the employees, it's exactly what this company needs." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest at his praise. "I've had a good teacher." "No, this is all you." William leaned forward, his expression serious. "Which is why I want to discuss something with you. We've been talking about expanding into sustainable technology, something that could really make a difference in communities like the one you grew up in." Emma nodded, remembering the struggles her family had faced with rising utility costs and unreliable infrastructure. "I've been watching how you've grown," William continued, "how you've taken every challenge and turned it into an opportunity. The way you think about business, it's not just about profits, it's about impact. That's exactly what we need for this new venture." He stood up and walked to his window, gesturing for Emma to join him. Below, the city stretched out, a maze of possibilities and potential. "I want you to lead this initiative," William said, turning to face her. "Not just as a project manager or department head, I want you to spearhead the entire division. Build it from the ground up, your vision, your way." Emma's heart raced at the magnitude of the opportunity. This wasn't just another step up the corporate ladder. This was a chance to create real change, to build something meaningful from scratch. "You would have complete autonomy," William continued, "to build your team, develop the strategy, and implement your vision. This could revolutionize not just our company, but the entire industry." Emma looked out at the city, her mind already racing with possibilities. She thought about her siblings, about other families struggling like hers had, about the potential to make a real difference in people's lives while building something innovative and sustainable. William watched her, recognizing the familiar spark in her eyes. The same determination he'd seen that very first day when she'd walked in asking for $2 for milk. "What do you think, Emma? Are you ready to lead?" Emma sat in her new office, surrounded by blueprints and proposals for the Sustainable Technology Division. The wall-to-wall windows offered a panoramic view of the city she'd grown to love, but her eyes were fixed on a small family photo on her desk. Her youngest sister, Katie, had just been accepted to college, and the pride Emma felt was matched only by her guilt at missing the celebration dinner last night due to work commitments. Her phone buzzed with another text from her brother Michael. "Meeting with academic advisor today. Wish you could be here." Emma's heart tightened. Between launching the new division and managing her existing responsibilities, she'd been missing more and more family moments. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Sarah, her assistant, entered with a stack of reports. "The contractors need your approval on these by noon," she said, placing them on Emma's desk. "And your brother called again about dinner tonight." Emma rubbed her temples, feeling the familiar tension headache building. "Thanks, Sarah. Could you push my 3 p.m. to tomorrow? I need to make that dinner." "Actually," Sarah hesitated, "you have the investor meeting at 6 p.m. It's been on the calendar for weeks." Emma's shoulders slumped. Another missed family dinner. The weight of her success was beginning to feel like a double-edged sword. Her new position came with more responsibility, more pressure, and less time for the very people she'd worked so hard to support. William appeared in her doorway, his expression concerned. "Everything all right? You look troubled." "I'm fine," Emma started, then stopped herself. If William had taught her anything, it was the value of honesty. "Actually, no. I'm struggling to balance everything. The new division needs my full attention, but my family—" She trailed off, gesturing to the photo on her desk. William nodded understanding and sat down across from her. "I wondered when we'd have this conversation. You know, when I started out, I made the mistake of thinking I had to do everything myself." "How did you manage?" Emma asked, genuinely curious. "I learned to build a support system," he replied, "both professionally and personally. You can't pour from an empty cup, Emma, and you can't be everything to everyone all the time." Emma glanced at the mountain of work on her desk, then back at the family photo. "I've been trying to handle everything alone," she admitted, "just like I always have." "You're not alone anymore," William reminded her. "You have resources now. Use them." The words struck a chord. Emma had been so focused on proving herself worthy of her success that she'd forgotten one of the most important lessons of leadership: delegation. She spent the next hour with Sarah, reviewing her schedule and responsibilities. Together, they identified areas where additional support could make a difference. Emma realized she needed more than just professional assistance. She needed help managing her personal life, too. "What about a personal assistant?" Sarah suggested. "Someone to help coordinate family events, manage household tasks, maybe even help with your siblings' schedules." The idea had merit. Emma thought about how much time she spent on logistics alone, coordinating schedules, arranging transportation for her siblings, managing household repairs. A personal assistant could handle those details, freeing her to focus on quality time with her family when she was home. She also decided to expand her professional team, bringing in experienced project managers to handle day-to-day operations while she focused on strategic direction. It wasn't about stepping back. It was about working smarter. "I'd like to build a team," she told William later that day. "Not just for the division, but for everything. I want to succeed here, but not at the cost of losing what matters most." William smiled approvingly. "That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Leadership isn't about doing everything yourself. It's about building and trusting the right team." Emma began drafting job descriptions that afternoon, carefully considering the kind of support she needed. She realized that accepting help wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a strategy for sustainable success. Looking at her family photo once more, Emma felt lighter. She didn't have to choose between her career and her family. With the right support system, she could excel at both. Emma stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, watching the sunrise paint the city skyline in hues of pink and gold. The early morning quiet gave her time to reflect on how far she'd come from that desperate day when she'd walked into this building asking for $2. Her new team had transformed both her professional and personal life. Jessica, her personal assistant, managed the household schedule flawlessly, ensuring Emma never missed another important family moment. The project managers she'd hired were exceeding expectations, allowing her to focus on strategic growth while maintaining work-life balance. Last night, she'd attended Michael's honor roll ceremony, beaming with pride as he received his Academic Achievement Award. Her sister Sarah had aced her college entrance exams, and the twins were thriving in their after-school programs. The stability she'd always dreamed of providing for her family had become reality. Emma walked to her desk, running her fingers along the polished wood. The morning's financial reports showed another quarter of record growth. The division she'd launched had expanded into 3 new markets, creating jobs for hundreds of people. Many of them had stories similar to hers, people who just needed an opportunity to prove themselves. "Your mother would be proud," William said from the doorway, startling her from her thoughts. He carried 2 cups of coffee, offering one to her. "I was just thinking about her," Emma admitted, accepting the coffee. "Remember when you told me about your father's promise to help our family?" William nodded, settling into one of the chairs across from her desk. "It's amazing how life comes full circle sometimes. I've been thinking about that a lot lately," Emma said, taking a sip of coffee. "About how to pay it forward. I want to start a foundation, something to help single parents and their children, provide educational opportunities, job training, child care assistance." "That sounds exactly like something Catherine would have wanted," William replied, mentioning her mother's name with gentle reverence. Emma's eyes misted slightly at the mention of her mother. "She always said education was the key to changing your life. She worked so hard to keep us in school, even when things were at their worst." Sarah knocked and entered with the morning mail. "This came for you, Emma. It's marked personal." Emma accepted the envelope, recognizing the return address from her old neighborhood. Inside was a letter written in familiar handwriting. Mrs. Chen, her mother's best friend from their old apartment building. As she read, tears welled in her eyes. The letter was from her mother's old friends, the women who had helped watch Emma and her siblings when their mother worked late. They wrote about how they'd seen the company's success in the news, about how proud they were of what Emma had accomplished. "Your mother always said you would do great things," they wrote. "She knew you had her strength and determination. The scholarship program you started in her name has already helped 3 families from our building send their children to college. You've honored her memory in the most beautiful way possible." Emma wiped her eyes, touched by their words. She remembered the nights her mother had spent at their kitchen table, poring over bills and working on her correspondence courses, determined to create a better life for her children. "Everything okay?" William asked softly. Emma nodded, holding the letter close. "More than okay. Sometimes I wonder if she knows, if she can see what we've built, how many lives we're changing." "She knows," William assured her. "Catherine's spirit lives on in everything you do, in every person you help, every life you change." The morning sun filled the office with warm light as Emma carefully folded the letter and placed it in her desk drawer, next to her mother's old photograph. The company would continue to grow, and she would make sure it grew in a way that honored her mother's memory, by giving others the same chance she'd been given, to prove that with opportunity and determination, anything was possible. The morning sun cast long shadows across Emma's corner office, as she stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing out at the city skyline. 20 stories below, people hurried along the sidewalks, reminding her of that day she'd stood among them, clutching $2 in change she'd scraped together for bus fare. She pressed her hand against the cool glass, remembering how intimidating this building had looked from street level. The gleaming tower had seemed to touch the clouds, and she'd felt so small, so out of place in her threadbare clothes. Now, after 5 years, this view had become as familiar as her own reflection. On her desk sat this morning's quarterly reports, another record-breaking period. The company magazine featured an article about their latest initiative, a scholarship program named after her mother, Catherine, which had already helped dozens of struggling single-parent families. Emma's eyes drifted to the framed photo on her desk, her mother's warm smile frozen in time, taken just months before the illness took her. "We did it, Mom," she whispered, touching the frame gently. "Everything you dreamed for us came true." Her siblings' latest achievements filled her with pride. Michael was heading to medical school in the fall, Sarah had just made partner at her law firm, and the twins were both excelling in college. From wondering how to afford milk to creating generational wealth, the transformation still felt surreal sometimes. The morning light caught the Crystal Award on her shelf. Business Leader of the Year. Emma remembered William's proud smile as he'd presented it to her at last month's charity gala. The same gala where they'd announced the expansion of their mentorship program, designed to give other struggling families the same opportunity she'd received. Her computer chimed with an incoming video call from their Singapore office. Emma straightened her blazer and sat down, switching effortlessly into CEO mode. The nervous young woman looking for $2 seemed like a lifetime ago, yet Emma kept that memory close. It reminded her of where she came from and why she worked so hard to help others rise. After the call, Emma reviewed the latest applications for their scholarship program. Each story resonated with her. Single mothers working multiple jobs, teenagers helping raise younger siblings, families struggling to keep their dreams alive. She'd been there, lived that reality. Now she had the power to change those stories. Her office door opened, and Jessica, her assistant, brought in her afternoon coffee. "The foundation board meeting is in 30 minutes, she reminded Emma. "And your brother called. He wanted to thank you for helping with his medical school application." Emma smiled, remembering Michael's excitement when he'd received his acceptance letter. Their mother had always said education was the key to a better life, and now all her children were living proof of that wisdom. The intercom buzzed. "Ms. Stevens, there's a call from Mr. Ashford on line 1. "Thank you, Jessica." Emma picked up the phone, her smile widening at William's familiar voice. "Emma, I've been thinking about our conversation from last week," William began, his tone energized, "about expanding the Foundation's reach globally. I have an exciting new venture in mind, something that could change thousands of lives. Can you meet me for dinner tonight to discuss it?" Looking out at the city again, Emma felt that familiar spark of possibility, the same feeling she'd had when William first offered her a job instead of just $2. "Of course," she replied, knowing that together they would continue to build on the legacy her mother had inspired. As she ended the call, Emma's gaze fell on the small, framed dollar bill on her wall, the first one she'd earned at Ashford Enterprises. Beside it hung a quote in elegant script. "Every great journey begins with a single step." Her mother had always said that, and now Emma understood just how true those words were.